Hey all. I'm going to try not to mumble too much and trail off. It's been a few days since I've posted anything, um, new video, anyways. Just, I don't know, there's been a lot of stuff going on personally and in the world um, that I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around a little bit. You know, I just finished painting the 4 pages that I've been working on for weeks now for Into the Impossible. It's taken a lot longer than I thought it would, but you know, I learned a lot on the process there, trying to figure out some various things. I'm pretty happy with the results right now. I say that knowing full well that usually when I say something like that I'm happy with a piece or a set of pages, at the time I finish it, then I strongly dislike it within weeks later. So we'll see how that works out. I'm just sketching some stuff. I've been toying with the idea of doing like a series of pinups of basically female character versions of typically male characters, you know, and not doing just a straight gender bend, but I'm doing a sort of a free the nipple kind of political commentary. Just they're characters that are typically male and topless, and nobody gives two shits about it. But you know, I'm keeping them more or less in the same costume, but doing a female version of it. So like right now, I'm thinking about He-Man or Conan, which are not totally interchangeable, but in my mind, they're very similar. He-Man with his goofy ass Prince Valiant haircut. So, you know, I'm always thinking about content. I'm always thinking about what I do with my art as far as the sexual content, because that tends to be where I go with it, for better or worse. And like with Into the Impossible, it's very much me trying to get out of that habit, but it just seeps its way in. So I've gotten a lot of encouragement from my wife to try and move away from that, but I feel like that's coming from, you know, that's coming from her being my wife and having sort of a selfish motivation on that. Not that I'm saying that that's a bad thing, but it's for her benefit in a way. It's also for my girls' benefit because then they can, you know, they've been able to watch me draw on a lot more than they ever have before, which has also been really nice. But deep down, I still feel like I'm not necessarily being 100% true to myself with this work. I'm trying to figure that bit out. I'm trying to figure out what it means to be true to myself in that regard, and the consequences of doing that type of work. One of the big consequences that I face, and I tend to forget about when I'm not at shows, but then when I'm at shows and seeing people watch, you know, look at my art, look at my books, look at the cover for issue 3 for Remedy, you know, and everything's covered up at cons. But, and all I have really, you know, except for the one issue of Evil Alive, is just topless women. And, you know, if it was dudes, nobody give a shit. But being Ohio, being the political climate that we're in right now with all this stupid shit about the new abortion laws, whatever your opinion is on that, I try not to get too political on this stuff. And I've debated long and hard about how political I get in my books. You know, one of the things that I've run into frequently in my personal life is that I am political one way, and the vast majority of my family is political the opposite direction. You know, the truth of the matter is we're similar on a lot of general topics, but I tend to steer away from several important topics that they hold near and dear to their heart. And I don't really feel like they are necessarily 100% wrong in their perspective on some of that stuff. I can see some of the points. I don't see some of the points, but I can see a lot of their points. And there's so much gray area there. And the broader political climate is so extremely bipolar right now. Even when most people really aren't that way, most people are far more moderate and doing a more case-by-case basis kind of situation. But, you know, as an artist, I don't really have the luxury of separating those things, because those things all, from my work, I don't have the luxury of separating all those things from my work, because those things inform me as a person. And just by the nature of the process, those things come through in my work in some fashion, even if it's very, very subtle. Excuse me. You know, so it becomes a question of what kind of content do I want to generate. It becomes a question of what do I want to say, and how do I want to go about saying it. Do I want to be super blunt? Do I want to be subtle? Do I want to have, you know, do I want to risk saying something now that I might actually regret later, or that I'm probably going to get a lot of blowback on? You know, growing up in a family that was politically biased a different direction than I am. And honestly, I had some of those ideals when I was growing up, and then got out in the world and saw other things, and, you know, saw different perspectives and gained different perspectives. So I still understand that. I still get where those roots are. But on another token, I feel like I've moved and grown away from that in a lot of ways. And my art bias is not against it. In some ways, I suppose it could be interpreted as being against it, because there's a lot of if you're not with us, you're against us kind of mentality in certain aspects of that. You know, that comes down both sides of the political interests. And it's a little frustrating, because I don't want to be stuck in one mode on anything. I don't want to be stuck in one mode in my art, and I don't want to be stuck in one mode in my, you know, system of ideals. So I'm, you know, constantly second guessing all that, overthinking it, and it gets pretty frustrating, among other things. One of the things I've grown up with, and I don't know if I've necessarily 100% overcome, and I don't know where I got this either. That's the worst part about it, is I grew up with a lot of embarrassment, I guess, about my sexuality and my feelings of that. And I think that's a big part of why my work comes out in such a sexual way, you know, which is funny being being a straight white dude and feeling so embarrassed about being a straight white dude is, I can see the irony. You know, but I think that's just me. Maybe that's a big part of why I do all of this, the art, the storytelling, the comics, you know, pen-ups, the sexy girls. Just to sort of take control of all that. But, you know, at conventions, it's still very embarrassing because I love the fact that there are so many families at conventions. I love that there are little kids coming with their families, because 10 years ago, it was just dudes. Like, there was maybe 10 women at a whole convention. And now it's gone completely the other direction, and it's very family oriented, and I love that. I have my own family, I get it. But it makes it a bit difficult for me with my very adult oriented comics content. You know, I don't want to embarrass anybody. I don't want to be embarrassed. And, you know, there's been some times when little kids would come up and look at books or get real close to my books. And, you know, it's awkward. So I'm really putting another thought into whether I want to do cons. I mean, just from a business aspect, I feel like conventions are getting to be a little bit problematic. I still love doing Gem City, as we said before. Alina and I did our commentary on that. Because it's my hometown con, and we met there, and it's super sentimental. I'm not sure. I don't know, because we're only doing Gem City and Champion City. That's basically it. I'm trying to, you know, develop a stronger web presence, which is difficult. Honestly, my web store has still not made a sale since January, and it's now May. So, what, 4 or 5 months? I'm hoping that that pans out as a long-term investment. Luckily, you know, a lot of this business with the web store and that sort of thing aren't extremely expensive. My art supplies are generally reasonably priced, so I don't invest a ton in that. But, you know, there's always the underlying need to make a profit. There's the fact that Alina's very pregnant right now, and we had a pretty big concern with her employment last week. Luckily that looks to be worked out. You know, I am the stay-at-home parent as well, so a lot of my time is spent running around with the kids, which I don't hate. I mean, I love doing that. I love having the time to spend with the girls, but there's always in the back of the mind that I could be working right now. And one advantage of doing not sexually explicit comics is that I can take that shit with me and work on it while I'm trucking around the state of Ohio. So, there's an up. You know, I've also been looking at considering of doing something quite a bit more explicit, even straight up porn, which you know, full discretion, I actually did a porn comic, and when I was in college, best paying gig I have or have had. It was under a pseudonym, so but if you find it, you could probably figure out it was me. One of the best clients I've ever had, too. Aside of the slightly weird feeling about doing such a gig, it really wasn't that bad of an experience. I've been rambling for a while now. I think that'll be it. Anyway, if you watch this, like honestly, I've gotten to the point with these videos where I just treat them like a diary excerpt. Some people have watched them, some have not. A lot of my videos have gone unviewed, which is fine. Hopefully in the long run it'll start picking up. But I'm just laying it out there, my perspective, which is a little bit is very difficult for me. To be honest, I don't even talk to my family about a lot of this stuff. Alina I talk to, but my extended family, like my parents, I don't really get into this stuff with. And I don't know why that is. Something I've struggled with for a long while. Maybe it's because it's very personal. Anyway, I had a thought, lost it, and my thought was, what do you think about content in comics? Obviously, the vast majority of it is geared for like a PG-13 audience, that range. Do you think that it needs a wider variety of more niche style audience? Like, are you okay with just having kids books and just having PG-13 books and just having rated R books and X books? That would be rated X, not X-Men. Do you think there needs to be more adult books? Do you think there needs to be less adult books? Do you think that one of the things that I have a problem with adult books is that a lot of it is just crap. And that goes for porn in general. I mean, yes, there are a few good ones. The Rock Cox, I can't say that straight. I think that's the name of it. Fantastic little webcomic that I found about a punk rock band. It's totally rated R, totally rated X, but it's also very well written, which is a gigantic breath of fresh air. So, and there was another one called Alfie that I found. It's kind of hard to find, actually. I think I got to it on one of those webcomic publishing sites. I can't remember if it was something Rocket, Comics Rocket. But it was beautifully drawn. It is beautifully drawn and fantastically written and just sexy as hell. So, I'm still figuring out, do I want to do that sort of work? Do I want to go down that whole... That was not intended to be a pun. Do I want to start down that path? And if I do, what are the consequences there? What are the sales? I mean, that's the biggest thing, is like, what are the sales? Is it going to be worth it? Do people like it? I want to, if I do anything like that, I want to do something that's pro-women. Like, those two webcomics that I just mentioned are extraordinarily pro-women, and I love that aspect of it. And very just pro everybody, really. And so much of the porn that I've seen up to that point was just so sexist and like, women like porn, women like sex. This is not new information. Why is this a problem? Like, I don't know. You know, it's one of those issues of, just like everything else, gotta build an audience. Gotta figure out what your niche is. Figure out what you want to do, where you want to handle it. Anyway, I haven't really resolved anything with this because this is a constant back and forth in my mind. But that's where I'm at right now, anyways. Alright. Leave a comment if you got something to say. I'm not typically one to get into big arguments online, but I don't mind having a little intelligent discourse. I will block the fuck out of you if you start trolling, though. Anyway, yep, cheers.